Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Nightingale and watched the stars pass by. He had been flying through space for 15 years, but the view never got old. Today was different, though. Today they were heading into dangerous territory. The Nightingale was a medical ship. It had white paint on the hull with big red crosses that told everyone what it was. The ship carried no weapons. It had shields for protection against space debris, but nothing that could fight back. That was the law. Medical ships stayed neutral in all conflicts. Jake was 42 years old with gray hair starting to show at his temples. He wore a simple blue uniform without any military decorations. He ran his hand through his hair and looked at the navigation display. 3 more hours until they reached Haven's Rest. Dr. Lisa Hammond walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the chief medical officer and the best doctor Jake had ever worked with. Lisa was 38 with brown hair tied back in a practical ponytail. She always looked tired these days, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "Captain, I've been reviewing the medical reports from Haven's Rest," Lisa said. "The plague is worse than they told us. We might need to stay longer than 2 weeks." Jake nodded. "We'll stay as long as it takes." "That's what we do." The door opened again and Katie Sullivan came in. She was one of the senior nurses, 29 years old, with red hair and freckles. Katie had joined the Nightingale 2 years ago and quickly became one of their best. She was carrying coffee for everyone. "Thought you might need this," Katie said, handing cups to Jake and Lisa. "Ben is down in medical bay prepping the equipment. Ryan says the engines are running smooth." Ben Carter was another nurse, a tall man from Texas who never stopped talking. Ryan Foster was their chief engineer, a quiet guy who loved the ship's engines more than people. Between all of them, they kept the Nightingale running and saving lives across the galaxy. The ship had 200 people on board: doctors, nurses, technicians, and support staff. They were all volunteers who wanted to help others. Most came from Earth, though some were from the colonies. They had treated over 50,000 patients in the last 3 years. Jake took a sip of coffee and turned to Lisa. "Tell me about this plague. What are we dealing with?" "It's a respiratory infection," Lisa explained. "Hits fast and spreads faster. The colony has basic medical facilities, but nothing equipped for this. They've lost 300 people already, and another 2,000 are sick." Katie shook her head. 300 dead? That's terrible. That's why we're here," Jake said. "We have the medicine and equipment they need." "We'll save as many as we can." The navigation computer beeped. They were entering Vakrian space. The Vakrians controlled this entire sector of the galaxy. They were a warrior race, proud and aggressive. Their empire had been expanding for centuries, taking over world after world. "Sending identification now," Jake said, pressing buttons on his console. "Medical vessel Nightingale requesting permission to enter Vakrian territory. Our destination is Haven's Rest. We are here on humanitarian mission." They waited. Minutes passed slowly. Katie shifted nervously. Everyone knew the Vakrians didn't like outsiders in their space. Finally, a response came through. The voice was harsh and mechanical. "Medical vessel Nightingale, your request is approved. You will proceed directly to Haven's Rest. No deviation from flight path. No scanning of Vakrian facilities. Violation will result in destruction." "Understood," Jake replied. "We will comply with all regulations." The communication ended. Lisa let out a breath she had been holding. "Friendly bunch. They're letting us help their colony," Jake said. "That's something. 10 years ago, they would have just let those people die." The ship continued toward Haven's Rest. It was a small world, barely terraformed, with only one major settlement. The colony had 5,000 people, mostly miners and farmers. They worked hard to extract resources for the Vakrian Empire. 2 days later, they arrived. Haven's Rest looked gray and cold from orbit. The settlement was a cluster of metal buildings surrounded by empty land. Jake could see the landing pad where they would set down. "Take us in," he ordered. "Nice and easy." The Nightingale descended through the thin atmosphere. The landing gear extended with a mechanical hum. They touched down gently and Jake shut off the engines. "Welcome to Haven's Rest," Katie said without enthusiasm. "Looks cheerful." Lisa was already moving. "Let's get to work. Ben, Katie, get the medical teams ready. I want the first group down there in 20 minutes. The cargo bay opened and medical supplies started moving out. Portable hospital units, medicine containers, and diagnostic equipment. The crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had done this dozens of times before. Jake watched from the bridge as his crew deployed. He saw Lisa leading a team toward the colony's medical center. Katie and Ben followed with equipment. This was what they did best, but something felt wrong. Jake couldn't explain it. He had a bad feeling in his gut, the kind that old spacers learned to trust. He looked at the sensor displays. Several Vakrian ships were in orbit. That was normal. They always had military presence. One ship concerned him, though. A warship called the Crimson Talon. It was staying close, too close. Its sensors were active, scanning the Nightingale constantly. Jake opened a communication channel. Vakrian warship Crimson Talon. This is Captain Morrison of the Nightingale. We have noticed your scanning activity. Is there a problem? A face appeared on the screen. It was Vakrian with gray skin and sharp features. The alien wore a military uniform with many medals. I am Commander Zarthax. We are monitoring your activities to ensure compliance with Vakrian law. We are here only to provide medical assistance, Jake said calmly. We have no interest in Vakrian military operations. That is what you say, Zarthax replied. His eyes were cold, but humans are known for their lies. We will watch you closely. The communication ended abruptly. Jake frowned. This was not good. He had dealt with suspicious military officers before, but Zarthax seemed different. More hostile. Down on the planet, Lisa and her team were already treating patients. The medical center was overwhelmed. Sick people lay on every available surface. Some were coughing badly. Others barely moved. Lisa went into doctor mode. She gave orders quickly and clearly. Katie, set up triage in the main hall. Ben, start the IV lines. I need blood samples from the sickest patients. They worked for hours. The plague was bad, but it was treatable. They had the right medicine and equipment. Slowly, patients started improving. By the end of the first day, they had stabilized 50 critical cases. Katie wiped sweat from her forehead. Long day. First of many, Lisa said. But we're making progress. We'll beat this thing. Up on the Nightingale, Jake received their report. Good news, they were saving lives. That was what mattered. But he kept watching the Crimson Talon on sensors. The Vakrian warship hadn't moved. 3 weeks passed. The medical team worked without stopping. They treated thousands of patients. The plague was contained. People were recovering. Haven's Rest would survive. Ryan Foster kept the ship running smoothly. The engines hummed with power. All systems were green. He was proud of his work. The Nightingale was old but reliable. On the final day, Lisa came back to the ship exhausted but happy. We did it, Captain. The outbreak is over. We saved them. Jake smiled. Good work, Doctor. Let's go home. But as they prepared to leave, Commander Zarthax sent one more message. Human vessel, you will submit to inspection before departure. Jake felt that bad feeling again. Something was very wrong. He just didn't know what yet. The inspection demand hung in the air like a threat. Jake Morrison knew something was wrong. Medical ships were protected by galactic law. They didn't get inspected without cause. Commander Zarthax, we are a registered medical vessel, Jake said carefully. We have completed our humanitarian mission. We request clearance to depart. The Vakrian's face appeared on screen again. His expression was hard and angry. You are suspected of espionage activities. You will submit to immediate boarding and inspection. Lisa Hammond stood next to Jake, confused. Espionage? We've been treating sick people for 3 weeks. Every action we've taken is documented. Your documentation means nothing, Zarthax said. Vakrian intelligence has evidence of your spy operations. You will surrender your ship or be destroyed. Jake felt his blood run cold. This was insane. They had done nothing wrong. We are protected under the Galactic Convention on Medical Neutrality. Any attack on us is a war crime. The Vakrian Empire does not recognize your laws, Zarthax replied. You have 1 minute to shut down your engines and prepare for boarding. Jake turned to his communications officer, Amy Chen. She was 26 years old, quick and smart. Amy, get me the Galactic Council. Emergency channel. Amy's fingers flew across her console. Trying, Captain. They're blocking all our transmissions. I can't get through. 2 more Vakrian warships appeared on sensors. They had been hiding, cloaked. Now 3 warships surrounded the Nightingale. Each one was armed with enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. Katie Sullivan ran onto the bridge. Captain, what's happening? The crew is asking questions. Get everyone to emergency stations, Jake ordered. This is not a drill. Prepare for possible combat. But we're a medical ship, Katie said. We have no weapons. I know, Jake said quietly. Just get people ready. Down in engineering, Ryan Foster saw the power readings spike. The Vicarian ships were charging weapons. He grabbed his communicator. Captain, they're going to fire. I'm diverting all available power to shields. Do it, Jake said. He looked at the countdown timer. 30 seconds left. Amy, keep trying to break through their jamming. Send a distress signal on every frequency you can find. Amy nodded and kept working. Her console lit up with multiple transmission attempts. All of them were blocked. The Vicarians had complete control of communications. The timer reached 0. Commander Zarthax, please, Jake said one last time. We are doctors and nurses. We save lives. Don't do this, Zarthax smiled. It was not a kind smile. You should have stayed on Earth, human. The communication cut off. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the universe exploded in light and fire. The Crimson Talon fired first. Its main weapon was a plasma cannon that burned hotter than a sun. The beam hit the Nightingale's shield's dead center. The protective barrier flared bright blue and held, but only for a moment. The other 2 warships opened fire together. Energy weapons and missiles struck from multiple angles. The shields couldn't handle so much power at once. They flickered and died. The first hit struck the engineering section. Ryan Foster was checking power couplings when the hull exploded inward. He had time to think one last thought before fire consumed everything. Then he was gone along with 17 other engineers. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed throughout every corridor. People were thrown from their feet. Equipment crashed to the floor. The lights went out and emergency lighting kicked in, painting everything red. Engineering is gone, someone shouted. We've lost primary power. Jake held onto his chair as another explosion rocked the bridge. Switch to backup systems. Get me damage reports. Lisa was already moving. I'm going to medical bay. We'll have wounded. Be careful, Jake said, but she was already gone. Katie sprinted through the corridors toward the medical section. People were running in all directions, some injured and bleeding. A piece of ceiling had collapsed, blocking one hallway. She climbed over it and kept going. In medical bay, patients from Haven's Rest were still on board. They had been too sick to transport planetside. Now they were trapped in a warship attack. Nurses and doctors worked frantically to evacuate them. Get the patients to escape pods, Lisa shouted over the noise. Move, move, move. Ben Carter was helping an elderly woman who could barely walk. Come on, ma'am. We need to go. Another explosion. This one was closer. The medical bay's far wall buckled inward. 3 people near it died instantly. Ben threw himself over the elderly woman, protecting her from flying debris. Katie reached them and helped Ben up. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Ben said, though he was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. We need to get these people out. On the bridge, Amy Chen was desperately trying to get a signal out. The Vicarians were jamming everything on normal frequencies. She pulled up older communication protocols, things she had learned in training but never used. There, an ancient emergency frequency over 100 years old. Nobody used it anymore because it was outdated. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't being jammed. Captain, I found an opening, Amy said. Old frequency. I can send a basic distress signal. Do it, Jake ordered. Send our coordinates and what's happening. Maybe someone will hear it, Amy typed quickly. The message was simple because she didn't have much time. Human medical vessel Nightingale under attack. Coordinates attached. Request immediate assistance. Multiple casualties. Vicarian warships attacking without provocation. She hit send and prayed someone would receive it. The Crimson Talon fired again. This time the shot hit the bridge section. The impact threw Jake from his chair. He hit the floor hard and felt something break in his ribs. Pain shot through his chest. Greg Phillips, the navigator, wasn't so lucky. A piece of metal debris from the ceiling struck him. He died without making a sound. Abandon ship, Jake gasped into his communicator. All hands, abandon ship. This is not a drill. Get to the escape pods now. Throughout the Nightingale, people ran for their lives. The ship was dying around them. Fires burned in multiple sections. The hull was breached in a dozen places. Air was venting into space. Lisa helped load patients into escape pods. Each pod held 8 people. They were designed for short trips to keep people alive until rescue came. She hoped rescue would come. That's the last one, Katie said. We need to go. Wait, Lisa said. There might be more people. Doctor, the ship is breaking apart, Ben said urgently. We have to leave now. Reluctantly, Lisa nodded. They climbed into an escape pod with 4 other crew members. The hatch sealed and the pod launched automatically, shooting away from the dying ship. Jake made it to an escape pod near the bridge. Amy was with him, along with 3 other bridge crew. "Everyone else out?" he asked. "Most of them," Amy said. Some sections didn't respond. Jake felt sick. Not everyone would make it, but he had to save who he could. They got into the pod and launched. From the safety of the pod, they watched the Nightingale die. The ship that had been their home, that had saved so many lives, was being torn apart by weapons fire. The reactor was critical. Jake knew what would happen next. "Close your eyes," he told everyone in the pod. The Nightingale's reactor breached. The explosion was massive, a miniature sun that vaporized what was left of the ship. The debris field expanded rapidly, glowing hot. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Lisa watched from her pod. Tears ran down her face. Ryan was dead. Greg was dead. So many others were gone. All those good people who just wanted to help others. Katie put a hand on her shoulder. Neither of them said anything. There were no words. The Vakrian warships began moving through the debris field. They used tractor beams to collect the escape pods. One by one, the small pods were pulled into the warship cargo bays. The survivors were now prisoners. Jake's pod was taken aboard the Crimson Talon. When the hatch opened, Vakrian soldiers were waiting with weapons. "Get out slowly. Keep your hands visible," they complied. What choice did they have? The Vakrians herded them into a detention cell. It was cold and smelled bad. Jake counted his people. Of the 200 crew who had been aboard the Nightingale, only 43 were here. Less than a quarter had survived. Commander Zarthax appeared outside the cell. He looked pleased with himself. "You are prisoners of the Vakrian Empire. You will be tried for espionage and spying." "We did nothing wrong," Jake said through the pain in his ribs. "We were on a medical mission. The galaxy will know what you've done." "The galaxy will know what I tell them," Zarthax said. "That human spies violated Vakrian space. That you were conducting illegal surveillance. That your destruction was justified military action." He walked away, leaving them in the cell. Jake slumped against the wall. They had failed. The mission was supposed to save lives, but instead, over 150 people were dead. Amy sat in the corner, thinking about the distress signal she sent. It had gone out on that old frequency, traveling through space at the speed of light. Would anyone receive it? Would anyone care? Would anyone come? She didn't know. All she could do was hope. Hope that somewhere out there someone was listening. Hope that humanity hadn't forgotten its children. Hope that help would come. In the darkness of the cell, surrounded by the injured and the grieving, Amy Chen held on to that hope. It was all they had left. The distress signal traveled through the darkness of space at the speed of light. It passed through empty systems where nobody lived. It bounced off old relay stations that hadn't been maintained in decades. Most receivers didn't even check that frequency anymore. The signal was like a voice crying in the wilderness, unheard and alone. But space is vast and full of secrets. The signal reached a region called the Ghost Belt after 2 days of travel. This area was marked on all modern star charts with warning symbols. Ships that entered the Ghost Belt sometimes vanished without a trace. Sensor readings went crazy here. Strange energy signatures appeared and disappeared. Every spacefaring species avoided this place. Nobody knew why the Ghost Belt was dangerous. The truth had been forgotten over 2 centuries. But the signal knew where to go. It was programmed with old coordinates, locked into its code by people who had died long ago. Deep inside the Ghost Belt, hidden within a massive asteroid field, was a facility that shouldn't exist. The asteroids were clustered so thick that navigation was nearly impossible. But in the center was a hollow space carved out of the rock itself. And in that space sat something terrifying. 10 warships floated in the darkness, perfectly preserved. They were enormous, bigger than anything humanity currently flew. Their hulls were dark gray metal, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. These were not exploration vessels. These were ships built for one purpose only: war. The largest ship was called the Valkyrie. It was 3 times the size of modern Earth battleships. Its main cannon ran the entire length of the ship, a weapon capable of destroying small moons. Around it sat 9 other vessels: the Independence, the Liberty, the Constitution, the Freedom, the Justice, the Defiance, the Resolute, the Guardian, and the Sentinel. These ships had been sleeping for 200 years. The distress signal reached the facility's outer sensors. Ancient computers that had been dormant flickered to life. Power cores began to activate, starting with low hums that grew louder. Lights turned on throughout the massive hidden base. In the facility's core was an artificial intelligence called Atlas. It had been waiting for 2 centuries, maintaining the ships and the base following its programming. Atlas was more advanced than any modern AI. It had to be to manage this secret alone for so long. The distress signal triggered Atlas's primary protocol. Its electronic consciousness expanded, running diagnostics on every system. The ships were perfect. The weapons were ready. The crews were in cryosleep just as they had been left. It was time to wake them up. Inside the Valkyrie, in a special chamber deep in the ship, 50 cryopods lined the walls. Each pod contained a person, frozen in time. These were volunteers from another era, men and women who had agreed to sleep until they were needed. Commander Pete Harrison was in the first pod. He had been 38 years old when he went to sleep. Now he was technically 238, though his body hadn't aged a day. The pod beeped and began the revival process. Warm air pumped into the chamber. Chemicals were injected to restart his metabolism. Pete's heart began beating again. His lungs took their first breath in 2 centuries. His eyes opened slowly. Everything was blurry at first. The pod hatch opened with a hiss and Pete stumbled out, nearly falling. His legs didn't work right yet. Revival from cryo-sleep always felt terrible. "Welcome back, Commander Harrison," a voice said. It was Atlas, speaking through the ship's communication system. "The date is October 15th, 2347. You have been in cryo-sleep for 203 years. Pete leaned against a wall, trying to focus. 200 years. He had expected never to wake up. The plan had been to sleep forever if humanity never needed them again. "Why did you wake me?" Pete asked. His voice was rough and dry. A distress signal was received on emergency frequency 77 Alpha. A human medical vessel has been destroyed by hostile forces. There are survivors requiring immediate assistance. Pete felt adrenaline clear the fog from his mind. "Show me." A holographic display appeared in front of him. He watched the recording of Amy Chen's distress signal. He saw the data about the attack on the Nightingale. He saw the casualty numbers. Over 150 humans dead, killed while on a peaceful mission. His hands clenched into fists. This was exactly what he had feared. Exactly why these ships existed. Humanity had chosen peace, but the galaxy was not peaceful. Someone always pushed too far. "Wake the rest of the crew," Pete ordered. "All ships. Full combat protocols." "Acknowledged," Atlas said. Estimated time to full operational status 45 minutes. Pete walked through the ship as other crew members began waking. The Valkyrie was exactly as he remembered. Every corridor, every system, all of it familiar. This had been his home before the sleep. He reached the bridge and sat in the captain's chair. The command console came alive at his touch. Ship systems reported ready. Weapons were charging. The reactor was at full power. Nicole Webb was the second person to arrive on the bridge. She was the weapons officer, a sharp-eyed woman who could hit targets at impossible distances. She looked disoriented from cryosleep but focused quickly when she saw Pete. "Skipper," she said, using her old nickname for him. "What's the situation?" "We've got humans in trouble," Pete said. "Vakrian Empire attacked a medical ship. Killed most of the crew. Survivors are prisoners." Nicole's expression hardened. "Medical ship? That's protected by galactic law." Apparently the Vakrians don't care about the law. Tyler Grant arrived next. He was the chief engineer, a quiet man who understood the Valkyrie systems better than anyone. Behind him came Emma Ross, the tactical officer. Then the rest of the crew filed in, each taking their stations. They were all veterans from the colonial wars, a period of human history that was barely taught anymore. Back then, Earth had been aggressive and expanding rapidly. They fought anyone who got in their way. These 50 people had been warriors in those conflicts. Pete stood and addressed his crew. "I know you're all confused. We've been asleep for over 200 years. The galaxy has changed. Humanity has changed. We became peaceful, diplomatic. We chose a different path." He pulled up the information Atlas had compiled. "This is what humanity is now. Medical ships, exploration vessels, diplomatic missions. We help people instead of conquering them." The crew looked at the data with mixed expressions. Some seemed relieved. Others looked disappointed. But today, Pete continued, some aliens decided that human kindness means human weakness. They attacked a hospital ship. They murdered doctors and nurses. They took prisoners, and they think they can get away with it. He let that sink in. Then he smiled, and it was not a nice smile. They're about to learn different. They're about to find out what humanity used to be, what we still are when pushed too far. Atlas status report on all ships. All vessels are operational, Atlas reported. Crews are at 95% revival completion. Weapons are charged. Navigation systems are updated with current star charts. All ships report ready for immediate deployment. Pete looked at his crew. We have survivors to rescue and a message to send. The message is simple. You don't attack humans and walk away. Emma Ross spoke up from Tactical. Sir, what are our rules of engagement? Old rules, Pete said. The ones from before humanity went soft. Offer them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, we destroy them. No mercy for people who kill medics. Nicole checked her weapons console. All systems green. I've got full targeting capability. These weapons are still more advanced than anything currently deployed. Tyler confirmed from engineering. Reactor is perfect. Atlas did good work keeping everything maintained. We can fight at full capacity. Good, Pete said. He sat back in his chair and brought up the tactical display. Atlas, calculate jump coordinates for the last known position of the Nightingale survivors. Show me the fastest route. The AI complied immediately. Recommended jump point will place the fleet within combat range of 3 Vacrian warships. Time to destination, 4 hours. Pete nodded. Signal all ships. We launch in 30 minutes. Formation Delta 7 on my mark, and open a channel to the other commanders. 9 faces appeared on screens around the bridge. The commanders of the other ships all recently woken from cryosleep. They looked as determined as Pete felt. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete said to them, we've been given a second chance. A chance to protect our people. 200 years ago, we went to sleep so humanity could change. But that didn't mean we stopped being ready to fight for them. Today we show the galaxy that humans protect their own. Commander Sarah Mitchell of the Independence nodded. My crew is ready. Commander Kevin Brooks of the Liberty agreed. We've got full combat capability. One by one, the other commanders confirmed their readiness. 10 ancient warships crewed by warriors from another time, preparing to remind the galaxy what humanity could do. Atlas provided them with updated information about the Vacrian Empire. Their military strength, their tactics, their technology. The Vacrians were formidable opponents by modern standards, but these ships were built to fight opponents much worse. Their shields won't stop our weapons, Nicole said after reviewing the data. Their armor is too light. Their tactics are defensive. They're not ready for someone who fights the way we do. Good, Pete said. Let's use that. The 30 minutes passed quickly. Throughout the 10 ships, the Vacrian prison transport was 3 days from its destination when the universe split open beside it. There was no warning, no sensor alert. One moment there was empty space. The next moment reality tore apart and something massive came through. The Valkyrie emerged first, its dark hull blocking out the stars. It was bigger than any ship the Vacrians had ever seen, covered in weapons and armor that looked wrong somehow. Too aggressive, too focused on destruction. Behind it came 9 more ships, each one a nightmare of military engineering. They formed a perfect combat formation around the prison transport, moving with a precision that made it clear these were not merchant vessels or exploration ships. On the bridge of the Crimson Talon, Commander Zarthak stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. The ships didn't match any known design. Their power signatures were massive. Where had they come from? Unknown vessels, identify yourselves, he transmitted. You are in Vacrian space without authorization. The response came immediately. This is Commander Pete Harrison of the Earth warship Valkyrie. We are here for the survivors of the medical vessel Nightingale. Release them immediately. Zarthax laughed. Earth warship? Humans don't have warships. You are liars and pirates. We're what humanity used to be, Pete said calmly. Before we got peaceful, you attacked our medical ship and killed our people. That was a mistake. Your final mistake if you don't release the prisoners right now. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Nicole Webb had her targeting systems locked on every Vacrian ship in range. There were 30 vessels total, all military. Under normal circumstances, 10 ships against 30 would be suicide. But these weren't normal ships. Emma Ross was tracking their formations and running tactical predictions. They're moving to surround us. Classic Vacrian pincer movement. Let them, Pete said. It'll make targeting easier. Tyler, how are we on power? Reactor at 80%, Tyler reported from engineering. All weapons charged. We can fire at will. Pete opened a channel to all the Vakrian ships. You have 1 minute to release the prisoners. After that, we will take them by force. And trust me, you don't want that. Zarthax looked at his tactical display. 10 ships against 30. The humans were outnumbered. Their vessels were old, ancient designs. This would be easy, I think not, he said. You will surrender your ships or be destroyed. The Vakrian Empire does not negotiate with criminals. Criminals? Pete's voice went cold. You attacked a hospital ship. You murdered doctors and nurses. You're the criminals here, and you just made your last mistake. He cut the transmission and looked at Nicole. Light them up. The Valkyrie's main cannon fired. The weapon ran the entire length of the ship, a particle beam accelerator that drew power directly from the fusion reactor. When it fired, the beam was so bright it looked like a solid bar of white light. It hit the Crimson Talon's shields and went straight through like they weren't there. The beam punched through the warship from front to back, vaporizing everything in its path. The ship's reactor breached immediately. The explosion was spectacular. Commander Zarthax died without understanding what had killed him. The other 9 ancient warships opened fire at the same moment. Railguns launched projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Plasma torpedoes burned hot enough to melt through any armor. Point defense lasers created a web of deadly light. The Vakrian ships tried to respond, but they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had encountered. These humans didn't fight defensively. They didn't try to minimize damage or preserve their ships. They fought with pure aggression, pressing every advantage. The Independence destroyed 3 Vakrian cruisers in the first minute. The Liberty's missiles tore through shields like paper. The Constitution's railguns punched holes in ships from bow to stern. Nicole coordinated the Valkyrie's weapons with brutal efficiency. Target lock on that destroyer. Fire main cannon. Another ship died. She was already moving to the next target before the explosion finished. This was what she had trained for 2 centuries ago. This was what these ships were built to do. The Vakrian fleet tried to regroup. Their admiral, commanding from a flagship called the Eternal Victory, broadcast orders to all ships. All units focus fire on the largest human vessel. Concentrate firepower. 15 warships turned their weapons on the Valkyrie. They fired together. Hundreds of missiles and energy weapons converging on one target. Emma tracked them all. Multiple incoming. Brace for impact. The projectiles hit the Valkyrie's shields. The barrier flared bright blue, absorbing the damage. The ship shook from the impacts, but the shields held. Shields at 70%, Tyler reported. Minor damage to secondary systems. Still combat capable. Pete smiled. Their turn is over. Our turn now. Emma, give me firing solutions on all ships that just shot at us. Nicole, full weapons spread. The Valkyrie responded with overwhelming force. Every weapon on the ship fired at once. The railguns, the plasma cannons, the missile batteries, everything. The space around the battleship became a storm of destruction. 5 Vakrian ships died in that single salvo. Just gone, torn apart by weapons that were 2 centuries ahead of their time in design, if not in years. The other ancient warships pressed their attack. They moved through the Vakrian formation like wolves through sheep. Their tactics were aggressive and unpredictable. They took risks that modern commanders would never consider. Commander Sarah Mitchell on the Independence pulled a maneuver that defied physics. She brought her ship into point-blank range of a Vakrian cruiser, shields overlapping. Then she fired everything. The cruiser couldn't withstand that much firepower at 0 distance. It broke in half. Commander Kevin Brooks on the Liberty used the debris from destroyed ships as cover, emerging from behind wreckage to ambush targets. His crew had fought in asteroid fields during the colonial wars. This was their element. The battle had been going for 20 minutes. The Vakrian fleet was being destroyed. Ships burned and died throughout the combat zone. The survivors tried to flee, but the ancient warships were faster. Inside the prison transport, Jake Morrison and the other survivors felt the ship shake from nearby explosions. They had no idea what was happening outside. Are we being rescued or are we about to die? Katie asked. I don't know, Jake admitted, but something big is happening out there. Lisa Hammond was treating the injured as best she could without proper equipment. Ben Carter was helping her. Amy Chen sat by the wall, praying that whoever was fighting out there was on their side. On the Eternal Victory, the Vakrian admiral watched his fleet die. This was impossible. Humans were peaceful. They didn't have weapons like this. Where had these ships come from? He opened communications to all remaining vessels. All ships retreat. Fall back to Sector Command. We need reinforcements, but Pete Harrison wasn't done. All ships pursue. Don't let them escape. We need to send a message. The ancient warships chased down the fleeing Vakrians. It wasn't mercy. It was a statement. You don't attack humans and run away. You face the consequences. The Liberty caught a fleeing destroyer and crippled its engines with a precise railgun shot. The Freedom disabled a cruiser with targeted plasma strikes. One by one, the Vakrian ships were hunted down. After 3 hours, it was over. 73 Vakrian ships destroyed. 22 disabled and drifting. Only 5 had managed to escape and to jump. The prison transport was the only fully operational Vakrian vessel remaining. Pete opened communications to the transport. This is Commander Harrison. You will release all human prisoners immediately and allow us to dock. Refuse and you'll join the rest of your fleet. The transport captain agreed instantly. He had watched the battle. He knew what these humans could do. We surrender. The prisoners are being brought to the docking bay now. The Valkyrie moved alongside the transport and extended its docking tube. Pete went to meet the survivors personally, along with Nicole and a security team. When the airlock opened, Jake Morrison stumbled through first. He stopped when he saw Pete's uniform. It was an old style from centuries ago. Military, aggressive, nothing like modern Earth designs. Who are you? Jake asked. Commander Pete Harrison, Earth Defense Force, Pete said. We received your distress signal. We came to get you out. Lisa Hammond came through next, supporting an injured crew member. She looked at the armed soldiers behind Pete and felt a chill. These weren't the peaceful humans she knew. Katie Sullivan and Ben Carter helped the other survivors through. All 43 of them made it onto the Valkyrie. They were safe now, but confused and frightened by their rescuers. Amy Chen was the last one through. She looked at Pete with tears in her eyes. You heard my signal. I sent it on that old frequency and you heard it. We were waiting, Pete said simply. For 200 years we waited, hoping we'd never be needed, but ready if we were. He led them to the medical bay where his crew had prepared beds and equipment. Lisa looked around in amazement. This was military hardware, but it was good. Better than what the Nightingale had carried. Your doctor can explain everything, Pete told Jake. He looked at Lisa. You're the chief medical officer? Yes, Lisa said. Dr. Lisa Hammond. Dr. Hammond, your people are safe now. My medical staff will help treat any injuries. After that, I need to speak with you and your captain about what happened. Later, in the briefing room, Pete sat down with Jake, Lisa. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Communication networks carried the story to every inhabited world. Peaceful humanity had a hidden fleet, ancient warships that could destroy modern vessels with ease. The species everyone thought was harmless had teeth after all. The Galactic Council called an emergency session within hours of the battle. Representatives from 200 species gathered on the neutral station called Unity Prime. The council chamber was filled with voices, all talking at once. Some were angry. Some were frightened. All were demanding answers. Earth's ambassador was an older woman named Helen Carter. She had served in the diplomatic corps for 30 years, always promoting peace and cooperation. Now she stood before the council, knowing that everything she had built might crumble. Ambassador Carter, the council chairman said. His name was Velox and he was from a species called the Trell. Explain to us how Earth has maintained a secret military fleet for 2 centuries. Explain why you lied about your capabilities. Helen took a deep breath. We did not lie. We simply did not tell you everything. 200 years ago, Earth was aggressive and expanding. We fought wars against anyone who opposed us. We were becoming conquerors. She pulled up historical records that had never been shared with the galactic community. Images of battles, conquered worlds, and military operations. The council members watched in silence. Then we realized what we were becoming, Helen continued. We saw the path we were on and chose differently. We stopped fighting. We became peaceful. We focused on exploration, science, and helping others. That change was real. A representative from the Andorian Federation spoke up. But you kept the warships. You kept trained soldiers in cryosleep. That is not the action of a peaceful species. It was insurance, Helen said. We hoped we would never need them. We prayed that the galaxy would be a place where medical ships could operate safely, where doctors and nurses would not be murdered while trying to save lives. She showed them the footage of the Nightingale's destruction. The council members watched as the medical ship was torn apart. They saw the escape pods being destroyed. They heard the casualty numbers. 157 humans died, Helen said quietly. They were unarmed. They were on a mission of mercy. They were protected by every law the galactic community recognizes, and they were killed anyway. The chamber was silent now. Nobody could defend what the Vakrians had done. So yes, Helen continued, we kept a hidden fleet, and when our people were murdered, when a medical ship was destroyed, that fleet woke up. They did what they were created to do. They protected humanity. Velox considered this carefully. The Vakrian Empire has filed a formal complaint. They claim your warships attacked without provocation. Helen pulled up the transmission records. This is the distress signal sent by the Nightingale as it was being destroyed. This is Commander Zarthax claiming they were spies with no evidence. This is the battle footage showing the Vakrians firing first. What provocation do you require beyond the murder of medical personnel? The council debated for hours. Some wanted Earth punished. Some wanted the ancient fleet destroyed. Others argued that Earth had shown remarkable restraint by only maintaining a defensive force. Finally, Velox called for a vote. The question before the council: should Earth be sanctioned for maintaining a hidden military fleet? The vote was close but ultimately failed. Earth would not be punished. Too many species understood that sometimes peace required strength. Too many had watched the footage of the Nightingale's destruction and felt sympathy for the humans. But there were conditions. Earth had to register all military vessels with the Council. They had to be transparent about their defensive capabilities, and they had to promise that the ancient fleet would only be used for defense, never for aggression. Helen agreed to all the terms. She returned to Earth exhausted but relieved. Humanity would remain part of the galactic community. On Earth itself, the reaction was mixed. Many people were shocked to learn about the hidden fleet. Some were angry that their government had kept secrets. Others understood why it was necessary. The 10 ancient warships arrived home a week after the battle. They approached Earth's orbital station slowly, broadcasting identification and peaceful intentions. The modern Earth defense fleet escorted them in, tiny ships surrounding massive ones. Pete Harrison stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie as they entered orbit. Below him was Earth, blue and green and beautiful. He had last seen it 200 years ago. It looked the same, but he knew it was different now. The government had a decision to make about the crews. 50 people on each ship, 500 total, men and women from another era who had woken to find themselves strangers in their own civilization. President Nathan Cole met with Pete personally at the Capitol. They sat in an office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Nathan was young, only 45. Pete was technically 238, though he looked 38. Commander Harrison, Nathan said, first, thank you. You saved 43 lives and showed the galaxy that humanity won't be pushed around. Just doing our duty, sir, Pete replied. The question is what happens now, Nathan continued. We can put you back in cryosleep. Keep you as our reserve force waiting for the next emergency, or you can stay awake and integrate into modern society. Pete had thought about this for days. He had talked with his crew, with Nicole and Tyler and Emma and all the others. They were warriors in a peaceful time. Where did they fit? We'd like to stay awake, sir, Pete said. Not to fight, but to teach. Earth's current military is focused on defense and peacekeeping. They don't know how to fight a real war. We do. We can train them, make them better without making them aggressive. Nathan considered this. You're talking about changing Earth's defense forces. I'm talking about making them competent, Pete said bluntly. The Nightingale was helpless. No weapons, no real shields, nothing. That can't happen again. Medical ships need protection. All civilian vessels do. We can teach Earth how to defend itself without becoming the aggressors we used to be. The president agreed. The 500 ancient warriors would stay awake. They would become instructors, advisors, and consultants for Earth's defense forces. They would share their knowledge while learning how the modern galaxy worked. Pete accepted a position as head of the new Defense Training Academy. Nicole became chief weapons instructor. Tyler taught engineering. Emma ran tactical training. All 500 found roles teaching the next generation, but they also lived normal lives. They found apartments, made friends, explored the Earth they had left behind. It was strange and wonderful. Technology had advanced. Culture had changed. But people were still people. Lisa Hammond returned to medical service, but she was different now. She had seen the cost of being completely defenseless. She became an advocate for armed medical ships, for defensive capabilities that wouldn't compromise their mission. Katie Sullivan joined her, working at a new trauma center on Mars. Ben Carter became a teacher, training new medical personnel. Amy Chen went into communications, developing better emergency protocols so no distress signal would ever go unheard again. Jake Morrison retired from space service. He had lost too many friends, seen too much death. He wrote a book about the Nightingale, ensuring that the 157 dead would never be forgotten. The memorial was built 6 months later, at the exact coordinates where the Nightingale had died. It was a station in space, small but permanent. The names of all the dead were inscribed on a wall of polished metal. Ryan Foster, Greg Phillips, and 155 others. Doctors, nurses, engineers, and support staff. All of them had died trying to help others. The memorial made sure the galaxy would remember. Earth changed its policies. New medical ships were built with defensive shields and point defense weapons. Nothing aggressive, but enough to protect themselves. Civilian vessels got better protection. The defense fleet expanded and modernized. The Ghost Belt was no longer hidden. It became an official Earth military installation. The ancient warships stayed there between patrols, maintained and ready. Their existence was public now, a visible reminder that humanity could fight if necessary. The Vakrian Empire issued a formal apology 6 months after the battle. They paid reparations to every family that lost someone on the Nightingale. Commander Zarthax's name was struck from all official records in disgrace. The Empire also changed its policies. They became more cautious about attacking civilian vessels. They learned that some species, even peaceful ones, had limits. The lesson was expensive but thorough. Other aggressive civilizations took note as well. Word spread through every military command in the galaxy. Humans are peaceful by choice, not by necessity. Push them too far and ancient warships wake up. Warships that can destroy entire fleets. Pirates learn to avoid human vessels. Raiders found easier targets. The attacks on Earth ships dropped dramatically. Nobody wanted to be the one who triggered another response from the hidden fleet. A year after the battle, Pete Harrison stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie during a routine patrol. The ship had been refitted with modern communication systems and updated sensors, but it was still the deadly warship it had always been. Lisa Hammond was with him. She had requested to tour the ship, and Pete had agreed.